Welcome back. Many thanks for staying with us here on the show. A study on the performance of Ghana's 7th Parliament by civil organization, civil society group Odekro indicates that a total of 54 members of Parliament absented themselves without written permission from Speaker Professor Michael Quay. This chronic absenteeism, according to reports, cited its violation of Article 97 has resulted in a 1.4 million direct monetary cost to tax-paying Ghanaians. According to the report, only 3 members of Parliament never absented themselves without written permission from the Speaker. Director of Research and Content Development at Odekro, who put this report together, has joined me in the studio. His name is Ernest Ama. Ernest has actually been we've been engaging Ernest throughout on this channel this morning since we got this report. Ernest, you're welcome to the studio away from the Skype.
Thank you, Gifty.
Okay, so you've spoken quite a lot about the 1.4 million loss to the state. You can touch briefly on it once again, but there are other issues you raise in the reports that we've not looked at. We've not looked at the bills that have come before the House, some of the bills that have come before the House, the Speaker's performance so far, and some other issues that perhaps you can just alert us also what we should be celebrating and what we should be concerned about as far as our parliamentary discourse is concerned. Let's start with the Speaker's performance.
Okay, thank you, Gifty. If you remember, on January 7th, 2017, when the 7th Parliament was inaugurated, Speaker Okwe, following his unanimous approval, mentioned 9 things that he was going to do to transform Parliament. And so we assess his progress in this respect. I would like to discuss 3 things that he said he was going to do. First of all, revision of the standing orders of Parliament. We know, the issue about revising or reviewing the standing orders has been something that we've been talking about for some time now, for over 10 years now. So it was exciting to hear that the Speaker was going to do something about it. But of particular concern to us is the portion which seeks to differentiate between absenteeism on personal business and then absenteeism on parliamentary duties. We also think that there should be a third option because some of the MPs double as ministers of state and deputy ministers of state. So there should be a third option which also suggests that an MP was absent because he was on assignment at the behest of the executive.
Okay.
And we believe this will also provide additional evidential material on the extent to which the executive is damaging Parliament. The second part of the Speaker's agenda is to encourage MPs, to submit private bills on the floor of Parliament. Well, we were very excited when we heard
and
that
I can remember very well that night that he was he was in Parliament and he spoke quite a lot. I was taking notes at the time and I remember how much I remember writing on a sheet of paper that I had a lot. He spoke a lot. He had a very long preamble before he started making his point. So far so good.
Well, like you said, the Speaker spoke a lot, but we don't have enough to show. Like, he's done so little. I mean, of course, it was only a year, so...
Okay, are you talking about so little as in generally, or when it comes to the private members' bill?
Well, when it comes to the private members' bill, but then to the Speaker in his speech promised to give equal speaking opportunities to all MPs, regardless of their party affiliation, regardless of whether they've been in Parliament for long, etc. But then, under his tenure, there has been walkout. The minority has accused them of not giving them opportunity to speak and actually sitting on their freedom of expression. So it's very interesting that, considering all the things that the Speaker said and what is actually unfolding on the floor of Parliament. We find it very interesting because on the issue about the private members' bill, after he said that, we have not seen anything.
You haven't seen anything?
No.
But is he supposed to necessarily do something? Or the moment he puts it out there that this is my intention, that people I've had Mahama Yarga, for example, make some comments about this. I don't know if he was going to push for anything in that regard, but after he has made this public statement, is he supposed to take any steps or expect that someone else will?
Yes, by saying it, he has created an expectation. Because you know what is interesting about the current speaker is I think the first speaker who was emphatic on the interpretation of the Constitution, which is like it's only the executive who is supposed to introduce bills to Parliament that has financial implications. So individual MPs cannot do that. And Professor Michael Quay, in his speech said that, I mean, it departs from this conservative interpretation of the Constitution, and he thinks that MPs should be given the right to introduce bills that has developmental value to, I mean, the country and then their constituents. So when the Speaker says something like this, we expect to see maybe something, a measure in place, at least a procedure in place that will allow MPs to introduce bills on their own account. But we are also giving him the benefit of the doubt because they are reviewing the standing orders of Parliament, and perhaps this might be considered. Okay.
I don't recall that he gave any timelines.
No, he didn't. But it's important to us. The executive, the executive is, if you look at the number of bills that was considered, significant, a lot of them were tax-related bills. And all of it was coming from the executive.
Let's take a little longer with the Speaker, because you mentioned that he spoke about giving equal opportunities to members of Parliament, both on the majority and the minority side. That has been a bone of contention. I mean, we've seen, and I don't know if it's unprecedented, but we've seen a very, I don't know if you can tell us from your reports whether what has happened in this Parliament chaired by Professor Michael Quay has been unprecedented in terms of walkouts and disagreement, especially from the minority side. We've had times when the arguments have been so heated where very unparliamentary words, if you like, have been used. You have times where a member of Parliament said, if the Speaker does not, it's as if the Speaker is allowing disrespect, also that he was prepared to disrespect the Speaker if he has to, and if that was the only way he could cut the Speaker's eye.
You see, I also think that another factor perhaps could be that, the Speaker is presiding over a unique Parliament when you look at in terms of the composition. The current Parliament has a near split 50-50 between old and then new MPs, and if you look at the ages as well, most of the MPs are between 30s and 40s, so it is prevailing over a very unique Parliament.
A different generation, if you like.
Of course, and the dynamics are different, and you can see that the new MPs who came, most of them are very aggressive, they are very forthright in their submissions of Parliament, and they are very difficult to tame. So Speaker Quay belongs to a generation of legislators who are more reserved, who are more thoughtful. They have their own way of going about things. So perhaps the Speaker will have to be very accommodating.
So you're saying that the Speaker is dealing with the generational gap issue?
Perhaps.
How is he handling it per your work so far? Is he ahead of his game, or is he facing challenging times?
I think it's not easy for the Speaker because it's so difficult. I mean, when you have a Parliament whereby you form a committee to investigate a matter, and then the minority decides to present its part of the report, and then you have a situation whereby a minority MP gets up and says that because you have not given my leader the opportunity to speak, I'm not going to proceed with my submissions again. I mean, it tells you that the Speaker will really, how can I even put it, expand his art to accommodate a lot of things. And I think so far, so good. Just that when you look at the things that he promised to do, particularly his silence on Article 78, that is very, very problematic because we know Professor Michael Quay. Most of us have read his books. I mean, he's a brilliant thinker, he's a brilliant academic. But then, the Speaker doesn't have any opinion on Article 78. And this is having a very serious negative impact on his Parliament.
What's in Article 78?
Article 78 empowers the President, I'm just paraphrasing, to appoint a majority of his ministers from Parliament. If you recall, there was a time when Professor Michael Quay walked into a nearly empty Parliament. It was so embarrassing. I think about 4 or 7 MPs were present.
Are there any recommendations in your reports for for Parliament. And by Parliament, I believe that, for example, the Speaker, to you know, implement or to some actions that he's supposed to take that could help him in his administration of Parliament.
Well, at some point we were thinking that perhaps the sanctions prescribed in Article 97(1)(c) was too strict, so maybe other mild forms of sanctions might be considered. So it includes admonition, it includes warning to MPs, as well as maybe you deduct for the citizens that were absent, you deduct from their salaries. I mean,
that would actually be nice.
Great. I mean, look at it. The 54 absentee MPs. What if this 1.4 million Ghana cedis has been retrieved from their salaries?
And we could use this 1.4 million to buy some ambulances, so people won't be dying. Beds. Actually, yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you have these. Do you have these recommendations in the reports that
we have it?
These sanctions you're talking about.
We have it, and we also recognize the challenges that MP ministers face. Well, some of them claim that sometimes, you know, they've left home, they are coming to Parliament, and then they will get a call from the presidency that you have to attend to this official assignment, and for that reason they can't come to Parliament and then fill the leave of absence, etc. Well, we grant them the benefit of the doubt, and we are saying that perhaps Parliament can consider automating its processes so that MPs, maybe through an internal system that they have, can request to be absent.
So you don't have to be in Parliament
to manually fill the
form
leave of absence.
So that you be absent.
Yes.
I see. Interesting. Let's quickly finish with the bills. RTI, for example, has been very important to us here in the media. We've seen the football that the bill has had to be used to play. We don't know how far. Did you have any special focus for RTI as a bill, or you look generally at the bills?
Well, we considered all the bills that were brought in the first session, and we realized that most of these bills stemmed from the ruling party's 2016 manifesto. And so most of them were tax acts. So Parliament really did a lot of work in this regard, and then subsequently they brought the 3 development bills, followed by the Major Mahama Trust bill and the rest. But then what we've seen is that we should be careful, because it looks like government is more interested in coming to Parliament to raise more money.
Raise more money, yeah.
And not really to pursue development-related matters like what we are talking about right now. I mean, you expect that Parliament will immediately come up with something that will, at least a stop-gap measure that will address the issues. But they are relaxed. But then when you look at
there's been a lot of work,
of course,
but the work that has been done was basically about raising money or taxes.
Yes, and these tax-related bills, most of them were passed under certificate of urgency.
I see.
So why can't we treat the concerns, the problems of citizens the same way?
Okay. Are there any recommendations on that as well?
Well, what we would like to suggest is that we are encouraging Professor Speaker Okwe to crack the whip against absentee MPs. I mean, this is a speaker who said that he would not tolerate lawmakers who break laws. He should translate his talk into action.
You also spoke about gender, and I am interested in that because I'm female, and in Ghana, and I think it's becoming quite universal. When people say gender, when they mention gender, it's mostly about women empowerment or something similar.
Right.
But I won't limit it to that. Gender. What's up with gender in Parliament in this session?
Well, we have 37 women MPs in Parliament now,
which is a good thing. I mean, an improvement on what we've had so far.
It's not an improvement. If you look at it from 1992 to date, it's not an improvement at all. In fact, I mean, it's a problem. And you know, we approached the women MPs to share their experiences with us, the challenges that they encounter, and they were not willing to speak to us.
Why?
I don't know. And so it puts us in a very difficult situation, because if the oppressed are unwilling to speak about their oppression, what can you really do?
Okay, oppressed. Are women oppressed?
Because Well, women MPs have complained that they get relatively, few speaking opportunities in Parliament as compared to their men MPs. So if you have issues like this, come out, speak about it.
But they were not willing to speak to you. Is it perhaps maybe based on how you approach them?
Well, no, and I don't think this is particular to Odekro. If you read the recent report on the cost of politics, look at the number of women in that report, very few. And other researchers have also complained that when they approach our women MPs to engage them on their challenges in Parliament, on the challenges they face from the primaries up to the parliamentary elections, they are willing to volunteer information.
Interesting. Well, I was just getting some feedback that I will put out in a bit, but let's wrap up our conversation about Parliament. You did this work over a period of time. What did you set out to achieve? What can you tell us about what you achieved? I mean, at the end of the day, and moving forward, what are the steps Odekro is going to take that should, benefit Ghanaians?
So our primary objective was to assess all activities that happened in the first session of Parliament, because at Odekro we are concerned about promoting transparency, accountability, and good governance. So the first session of Parliament has 3 meetings. And so we looked at the first, the second, and then the third meetings of Parliament. So we look at MPs' attendance, we look at the bills that were brought to Parliament, we also looked at the issues that were discussed as well. Yes.
So the attendance, we know it's not a good story.
Yeah.
The bills, we know that we could do better.
Yes.
And then the discussions.
The discussions, yes.
Have they been enriched? Have they been better?
We decided to omit the discussions in the report because you can clearly see that this was a new Parliament, and the new MPs were trying to find their feet, trying to understand the processes and procedures of Parliament. So we felt if we've gone ahead with the information, it would have greatly disadvantaged them. So we looked at the issues in broad terms.
Okay.
So we didn't disaggregate. Therefore, it would have been very embarrassing because, I mean, you would have had a situation where some MPs didn't talk at all in Parliament, and that would have been very...
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people, so if you don't talk at all, I mean, it's not like you're not doing well,
right.
Is it?
So in our report on the second session, we'll be looking at that part.
Okay.
And we'll also be checking whether the issues that MPs talk about in Parliament actually reflect the realities of their constituencies.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. I'm particularly looking forward to that bit of the report where whether or not the issues they raise reflect or resonates with their constituents.
Right.
But how would you know? Are you going to listen to them and then check with their constituents?
Yes, because we'll be organizing town hall meetings.
Okay.
Yes, we'll be going to the constituents to engage people to understand what their challenges are, and then we'll measure that against what their MPs have been talking about.
Parliament. Okay, so while members of Parliament, you should up your game if you're this, just don't go to Parliament at all. Those who go and not contribute to the discussion so far, because Odekro will be looking out for that. But if anybody who is interested, any Ghanaian is interested, who is interested in what goes on in Parliament, is listening to you, what is it that you want them to remember always and not forget from this interview?
Okay, so first of all, they should visit our website, www.odekro.org, and then subscribe. We send weekly updates on parliamentary activities, so you actually get regular updates on whether your MPs are representing you or not. Secondly, they should also check our social media pages, Odekro, because we also share we summarize the bills that come to Parliament as well, and we also track the period that it takes for the bills to be approved. If you have written to your MP, if you have sent your MP messages and you have not had any response, you can also forward it to us, and we'll go to Parliament and then give it to your MP.
I mean, that sounds like a good thing. Odekro, you can just get on social media and get through to Odekro, and let's help keep our parliamentarians accountable, because we're the reason they're there. We're paying them, and we need them to do work and not to be absent and cost us 1.4 million Ghana cedis. But in the meantime, who are you rooting for in the World Cup?
Oh, you put me in this one.
Did I?
Okay.
Russia is playing Saudi Arabia. Who are you rooting for, by the way?
For this match or for the World Cup in general? Which one? This match or the World Cup?
Okay, the World Cup generally.
Oh, my African brothers are going to kill me.
Okay, they will understand. Ghana is not there.
Ghana is not there.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Myanmar is with Odekro, and he's helping us, assess our parliamentarians and their work in the previous session. In the next session, they'll be looking at how the discussions on the floor of Parliament went, who contributed and who did not, and whether or not the issues raised reflect the sentiment or whether it resonates with the constituents of those members of Parliament. But you can log on to their website and see for yourself how Parliament has performed so far, including Professor Michael Quay and his work moderating majority and the minority there.